What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Miko, joined by my guy Morgan Cannon here. And Morgan, we're back with another All-22 film study. This time looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who the Lions will face off against this upcoming Sunday. Another rematch, not just from last season, but also from the playoffs. So the Lions get back-to-back playoff rematches. We saw how they fared against the Rams. Hopefully they can have some of the same type of success against the Buccaneers, right?
Yeah, another familiar face. It's interesting. Like, this is three times in basically a calendar year. So it's almost like the Bucs are. It's like the NFC Central days. You know what I mean? And we're like playing the Bucs a bunch again.
That's a good call. Yeah.
That's what it makes me think of. I know that's good. Young people are gonna be like, what? But yeah, look it up. I wish the Bucs would wear their creamsicles again. That'd be nice. That'd be a nice
Those look
aesthetic
so clean.
with our new jerseys. Oh my God, just cream of the crop. And but yeah, it should be a good game. I'm excited. I'm happy it's a 1 o'clock game because my goodness, bro. It's Wednesday.
I'm happy that I can get that one out the way and then enjoy the rest of our day and all that type of stuff. Like, yeah, it'll be nice. Enjoy some Sunday night football later on.
That's what I want. It's Wednesday. I'm still tired from Sunday. I can't. I'm not built for this anymore.
I feel you. Right. 30 don't play.
No.
30 plus don't play with you.
I'm 33, guys. I'm old. Can't do this.
Oh man. But like you said, this is the third time in literally like a calendar year that the Lions are seeing the Bucs again. And I don't think the thing that you're most concerned about this team, I don't think has changed, Morgan, in those two matchups. It's still this passing attack. It's still these two wide receivers. And even more so, I think last year we were hedging a bit with like, all right, is Baker really like caught his groove, or is this just like a flash in the pan? And it's looking like, based off of what he did last year, what he did in the playoff game, and what he did last week against the Commanders, Baker's very, very comfortable in this offense, and he's doing a lot of things that are helping his wide receivers excel, outside of the fact of him, again, having just two top-tier wide receivers to work with.
Yeah, their receiving core is obviously no joke. Mayfield's playing some really good football. He's, like you said, comfortable in that offense. Similar to Jared Goff, maybe not a one-to-one comparison, but he's certainly revived his career when, for a little bit, if y'all remember there, he was bouncing around. Like, remember when he got to the Rams and for 4 days and then started a game, and that was a wild era for Mayfield. So kind of good to see him revive his career and get things back on track. Hopefully he hits a nice little speed bump on Sunday. That'd be, I'd love to see that. But yeah, excited to get into it here because, like you said, Mike Evans and Godwin, no joke. Just it's gonna be tough to deal with.
Yeah, and I think the thing that the Lions have to be most concerned with as we kind of jump into the film here is some of the same things that kind of plagued them last week against the Rams. The Buccaneers will run similar types of concepts as far as trying to get their wide receivers open short and then allow them to make plays after the catch.
Yeah, and they're really good at doing it. They're going to run a lot of these combinations. And watching the Rams film from Sunday Night Football Week 1, they were just really efficient, man, with the quick game. Like, I think Dan Campbell said, I don't know where it was, maybe on his radio spot, but he was like, it didn't matter if they had high school tackles there blocking Hutchinson as quick as they were getting the ball out. Like, you'd have to be Usain Bolt in the prime to get to Stafford the way he was getting it out. So I won't say that we'll see just a copy, like a mirrored image from the Bucs, because I do think they like taking their shots down the field because they have two big-bodied receivers who can go win a go ball in Evans and Godwin.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you see this combination here. You got both of them in a stack, and basically Evans is just running a clear out, and it puts the defense in a tough spot, right, Miko?
Yeah, this is where you want your corners to have very clear communication on who's responsible for who, because when you run concepts like this, where essentially Mike Evans is hoping to get this type of reaction, right? He's hoping that the corner and the safety both focus on him and carry him up the field so that it leaves Godwin open in the flat for this little dump off. And so, like I said, you just need your corner and your safeties to have very, very clear communication of, hey, if we see this type of alignment where Godwin and Evans are lined up right next to each other, which the Bucs do a lot. Who is responsible for who? What do we do if one carries up the field? How far do you carry them up the field? And obviously, the Bucs were also blitzing off the nickel here with former Michigan nickel Mike Sanders. I think
it's Sandstro.
Sandstro.
Hopefully.
Yeah, he's blitzing off the nickel here. And again, Baker just gets the ball out so quickly. And again, everything else kind of just falls apart on the backside where, again, there's not clear communication and it just leaves Godwin open. Easy catch, easy 11-yard gain, first down for the Bucs.
Yep, and I love that you pointed out the Saints blitz because you can clearly see both the Bucs offensive line, which is a good unit. You know, they have Tristan Wirfs at left tackle, one of the best tackles in football. Solid center, solid interior offensive line. They got Bredson, Ben Bredson, the Michigan kid at left guard, Burton at center, and then Cody Mock at right guard. So it's a solid group overall. And Gadecki at right tackle. I think he's dinged up, so we'll see. But yeah, they clearly, they picked him up. Mayfield hit his back foot. That was a really clean pocket and right on time. That's it. We saw that a lot with the Rams. There was tight coverage, though, I will say. Like, people usually weren't that open like we just saw in the first clip. But when you're on time and you're in rhythm as a quarterback, you can start the deal. And Mayfield still, the arm talent, he's not Stafford by any means. But
he can, if you give him easy throws and things like that, like, he will beat you with it. And I think this next play, Morgan, is a very good example of that as well, where, again, if he gets the matchup that he wants, if you call the defensive play that works well for their play, he knows where he wants to go with the football and he's going to hit his guy open. Again, we have in this play, before we run it, you have 3 receivers at the top. You have Otten, Godwin, and then Mike Evans closest to the tackle. So kind of in the slot. I mean, him and Godwin are both technically kind of playing closer to the offensive line here. But again, I think this is once again another like nightmare scenario if you're the Lions defense, where it's like, okay, we have both of these guys near the middle of the field where this can become very dangerous. And again, this is what happens when communication probably isn't at its best and you get a wide open Mike Evans for a really, I think this is like 24 yards.
Yeah, and they're showing cover 2 pre-snap, Washington is, and then they roll to what looks like cover 3. So post-snap. So they're trying to disguise things a bit, but Mayfield sees right through it. And again, looks like there's a little bit of miscommunication. Like you said earlier, there definitely was when Sainstro was trying to point to the safeties, like, you got to come down and get him. And he didn't. So I think you see that again here, but it's also just a good concept against zone coverage because it's going to put that defender in a bind. So the Lions do a lot of this, right? Like someone's running a clear out and then someone's running, a corner right into the zone that was just unoccupied by the clear out. So
yeah, and so again, with it looking like they're running a cover 3, and the reason we say that it looks like cover 3 is so you have this corner at the top who's Emmanuel Forbes. He's covering Otten on the go route. So again, he's covering, if this is cover 3, he's responsible for the deeper part, the deep third of this coverage. You have your nickel that's responsible for anything that happens in the flat. That's why you see Sainstro kind of lock up with Godwin here, and then you have this safety kind of come down in like a little bit of a robber / like buzz type cover. So he's covering anything that's close to the middle of the field to kind of cover for like these linebackers here. So if anything's going to happen just with under 10 yards or so, he's responsible for covering that. Safety near the bottom is responsible for anything on both sides that goes deep. And Morgan, again, not saying that every form of coverage can be perfect, but I think because this safety is a little late getting some depth, this is why this zone to the right that Mike Evans kind of fills in with this corner route is so wide open.
Yeah, and this is where the Bucs experience and like Evans and Godwin's rapport with Mayfield and just in the offense pays dividends because their routes are most often going to be run at the perfect depth. It's going to break right where it needs to, and they're going to end up where Mayfield feels comfortable throwing the ball to. Like, this is a clear window. And Mayfield, he does a good job, but you watch him on film, he does a pretty good job of manipulating. I know there's another play here soon where he manipulates the defense with his eyes, and he does a bit of that here, but really he doesn't need to. It's just a nice concept against what looks like a cover 3 concept, and it works.
Yeah, and he does a good job of hanging in the pocket too, and then delivering this ball a little bit before Mike Evans completely comes open. So again, if you allow him to be comfortable in this pocket and allow him to just kind of hit his back foot and make a clear read, dude's gonna make you pay.
Yeah, and he'll throw with anticipation too. Like, that's what you mentioned it before we got on, because he took a nice little shot here, and he put that up where the big kids can get it with Evans, but he's 6'5" and he plucked that thing out of the air. He's He's one of those odd players, Mike Evans. I really like his game. He's like one of those. Is he a Hall of Famer? Like that's the conversation
That's the conversation. Yeah.
that's going to be happening here in the next, because his production is crazy. But
Hmm.
there's going to be some people like, oh, he's the Hall of Very Good, and I'm kind of torn to be honest. Like I don't know, but he's a really good player, and we saw that in the playoff. What do you have, like 147 yards against the Lions in the playoffs? Like he went off.
147 and a touchdown. And I think like to kind of like deter a quick second for that, like for me, like Mike Evans is for sure a Hall of Famer. And this is, and again, I'm not saying that this is like a criteria for being a Hall of Famer, but like when you think of a team and you think of the best player to play for said team, like Mike Evans for me is one of the like top 5 players that come up when you start thinking of Buccaneers players. Obviously, you have Warren Sapp. You have a lot of players on that defense that have played there for so many years. But when you start talking about like best offensive players to ever play for the Buccaneers, I can't think of a bigger name than Mike Evans.
He's way up there. I'm sure if we really thought about it, there'd be some conversations. But yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Big fan of his game. Godwin's a dog too. They're tough to deal with. I do think the Lions obviously are going to be a little bit more equipped to deal with them this time around. Hopefully, knock on
Yeah,
wood. Y'all know how we do here. Oops, I gotta get on the head. But yeah, Terrion Arnold, Carlton Davis. Carlton Davis does have a lot of familiarity with these guys. I'm practiced against them for a long time, so I'm sure that'll pay. But to the same point, I'm sure Evans and Godwin are like, oh, this is how we can get past CD3. We know he likes to do this and that. So it goes both ways. But I think it'll be a good challenge for them, right?
absolutely. And I think one of the best ways that you can make sure that revamped secondary is in position to perform. Morgan, we kind of did like a little bit of this last year when doing some of these film studies where every once in a while you see a play that a defense calls, you're just like, hey, maybe you guys shouldn't do stuff like this because it's going to turn out badly for you.
Yeah, and this is exactly what Tampa wants. They're running what looks like to be a bubble concept down towards the bottom of your screen when you get back to this view. And so that naturally a lot of eyes are being drawn there from Washington. But all it takes is Mayfield just for a second to glance over to his right, and you'll see that safety, that single high safety up there. Just take a few steps to his left, and that's all Mayfield needs. And that's a dime, man. Like you can't really throw that any better. It's relatively good coverage, but
Yeah.
Mike Evans is Mike Evans, and he knows it. Look at him.
Yeah, this is what Tampa wants, right? They want their best receiver one on one with no safety help, and they're at least going to take the shot. Again, there's no guarantee that this is going to be a touchdown, but you're gambling off the chance of like, hey, my guy's better than your guy. And Mike Evans has been that guy for a lot of his career. And I'm right there with you. This is pretty solid coverage. The corner could obviously have gotten his head around. If he could have gotten his head around, he probably would have been able to bat this ball away. But because he doesn't, Mike Evans is able to use that height and that length and is able to just snag this one.
Yeah, and he's a big body, and he's good. He presents his hands at the very last second because he knows the DB doesn't have his head around, and it's just savvy. And this is why I think the Lions were going to lean on Aaron Glenn. Likes to be in those, the 2 high split safety looks, where you're splitting, the back part of the field in half,
Yeah.
essentially. So that the deep part of the field in half. I always said that. So that's what AG is going to want to do because it gives you help against, you have Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch back there lurking when because Mayfield, he knew he had man pre-snap, and he's like, I'm just going to look here for a second, and if he takes any steps, I'm going to let this thing go. So
Yeah. And so, like, again, you just don't want to give the opposing team, like, again, easy layups like that or easy, again, there was no guarantee that that's going to be a touchdown, but you don't even want to give them a favorable matchup in this type of situation. So it's going to be on AG, like you're saying, to continue to do what he can to, again, make sure that his defense and that his players are in prime position to at least be able to make plays. So Morgan, when we look at all of these things, like, okay, so the Bucs can attack you short with really interesting route concepts with both of their wide receivers. They can run deep concepts that again will find them to be able to beat some of your zone coverages. And if you give them favorable one-on-one matchups, they'll beat you that way too. So what is the key to beating a Tampa Bay Buccaneers passing attack? I'm of the belief it's pressure, and it may sound like an easy answer, but when you look back at what the Lions were able to do with the Buccaneers last year, pressure played a really big role in it, and getting Baker Mayfield off of his spot, off of his timing, really helped lead them to that win last year.
Yeah, and pressures, you're making a great point though, because yes, pressure is great anytime people are going to think that, but we're talking about interior pressure specifically here because Mayfield's not 6'6", so he does need throwing lanes to be able to, look at the field. And when you start muddying that up and like you said, getting him off of his spot, and that's where he's going to maybe have some errant throws, turn the ball over because he's comfortable right now. We've been saying it the whole video, right? So
Yeah.
getting him uncomfortable and getting that pressure up the middle, I think could lead to sacks because he's comfortable navigating the pocket. He'll slide step and step up and navigate in the pocket. But if you get him running around a little bit, I think that's where he can get in trouble. And that's what, Benito Jones gets a good rush here, ends up just being a throwaway. And he would love this if you get like a couple of these against him and, several sacks too.
Exactly too, and especially when like you don't have to blitz, right? Like this is just clear, like your D line being better than their O line on this snap. And I love what you were saying. Like Baker does, he is so comfortable navigating the pocket because he's more mobile than I think people give him credit for. But this is where, again, getting him off of his spot is still to your benefit because, like you were saying earlier, as good as he is as throwing a nice ball, and especially when he's in rhythm and he can be on time, he's not Matthew Stafford. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. Like it's throwing on the move is something that he can probably do in some situations, but it's not consistent. It's not what he would like to do. And it's not what, if you're Tampa Bay, it's not what you want him doing either. You want him in the pocket, being able to survey the field and being able to deliver passes on time. If the Lions can do something like this where, hey, your defensive line is getting early pressure and forcing him to move sideways and have to make, his third or fourth read and have to make that throw on the run, awesome. If not, maybe Aaron Glenn does key up some of these blitzes that we saw him key up last year where he put both of his linebackers in the middle of this defense and basically just sent him after Baker and just tried to get him to hurry up his process.
Yeah, and there's very few players. I love that you made that point too, and you named like the few of them that can do it really, that can evade pressure, like we just saw in the Benito Jones rep or this one here, and still keep your eyes down the field. Typically, if you're running away from a 320-pound human, like Levi Onwuzurike or Lee McNeil, for instance, that's what you're looking at. But some of them, the elite ones, can keep their eyes down the field and still, make plays. And Mayfield can here and there. We're not saying he's, can't do it, but he's like many other quarterbacks. It is very affected, especially by that interior pressure, because you can't just step up and let them run by you. Like Levi got some licks on Stafford last week, man. Like he got the sack, but I remember one specifically, and it was a legal hit. Stafford got up and was kind of pissy, but I was like, yeah, I don't know what you're mad about, man. They're not going to throw, because like Levi didn't even go down with him. He just hit him, and then it was a good legal hit. But I think you do that to Mayfield a couple times, it starts to affect him. You can hit Stafford and Mahomes and those guys until they're blue in the face. They're going to keep looking down the field and trying to make plays. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like for the most part.
Yeah, they have that arm talent to where like they can make up for taking a hit. Like to your point, there were a couple throws that Matthew made last week where it's like, bro, like you're being hit, or you're being like you're kind of moving one way and you're throwing the other way.
Yeah.
Those are, if you're able to generate that same type of pressure on Baker Mayfield and this Buccaneers offensive line next week, I think you see a different result. I think you do see more passes going errant. Now, granted, two great wide receivers, and so they can definitely like turn nothing into something. But through the course of 4 quarters, those hits will pile up. And like you were saying, on someone who is under 6 feet tall, who maybe doesn't have the top tier arm talent, we'll start to see it affect his passes as the game wears on. And this could be another one of those games where, man, it maybe takes until the third, fourth quarter for you to finally see Baker kind of start to wane and not play to the standard that the Buccaneers are hoping that he will.
Yep, right there with you, man. I think that's what AG wants to do. Get after him, play man coverage, and get some pressure on Mayfield, because I do agree. I think you heat him up, you speed up his process like we talked about, you're going to be in good shape, in my opinion. So I think that's the key. Going to be a good test for Hutchinson and Marcus Davenport, because you're going against Tristan Wirfs this week and possibly Luke Gadecki on the right tackle. So that'll be a good one.
But they get DJ Reader back. It's going to be very interesting. I think this is going to be another really good test. Obviously, just like the Rams, the Bucs remember that, hey, the Lions are the reason that we didn't get to advance further in the playoffs. They're the reason we didn't get to play in the conference championship. So, I expect this game to have a little more oomph to it. It's once again in Detroit, so I expect the crowd to bring a lot more noise, and it's going to probably, again, feel very similar to the way it did last year. But we'll have to wait and see how things play out. Obviously, we'll be back later this week to do another short video where we probably just recap injury news and things of that nature. But Morgan, I think as far as what we're seeing on tape, yes, the Buccaneers are going to pose a challenge pretty much in the same way that the Rams did in terms of how they attacked the Lions secondary. But if they can continue to generate pressure the way they did last week against the Rams, the way they did last year when they played them in the playoffs, I could still see the Lions squeaking out a win in this one.
Yeah, man, I agree with you though about it'll be a challenge, but I think it's a winnable game because I think the offense can hopefully get their mojo going against this defense. They got some players over there, but it's nothing that the Lions can't deal with. And if you get some stops and do the things that we talked about and get some pressure on Mayfield, I think you're gonna be in good business. And that crowd, we already know so there's a question out there: is it the hardest place to win a football game? And I love that we're in that conversation.
I was going to say, it's just awesome to be in the conversation at this point. So I think dope. Time will definitely tell. The rest of the season will continue to tell. But yeah. So guys, that's pretty much going to do it for this week's film study. Let us know in the comment section below, what are you most concerned about when it comes to the Bucs? What do you think the Lions need to do to be able to counter some of the things that the Buccaneers do well? And what other area of the game do you think is going to really, determine the outcome of this game? Also, if you're looking for any more Lions content, all you have to do is head over to prideofdetroit.com. We are always uploading brand new articles over there, multiple articles throughout the day. And if you want to continue to stay tuned to the video content that we're uploading over here on YouTube, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and that's going to keep you up to date on all of the video content and when we decide to go live over here on YouTube. But with all of that said, I'm Miko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch. And we'll catch you guys in the next one.